Power of the Dog, out on Netflix, directed by Jane Campion, based on a novel by Thomas Savage. The film stars Benedict Cumberbatch, Kirsten Dunst, Jesse Plemons, and Cody Smit-McPhee. From a distance, it looks like a western, but really it's an interpersonal drama/character study. The story takes place in 1925 Montana. Cumberbatch and Plemons play brothers, Phil and George, successful ranchers who have inherited the family business and now run it together. Phil, played by Cumberbatch, is the more abrasive one. He is essentially a bully to his brother and everybody else around him. He, refuses to use the bath that they have in the house. He's very set in his old school rancher ways, washes exclusively in the river, and by all means tries to be this tough guy around, earning respect through fear. George is more timid and kind, and when he marries a widow from a nearby town, bringing her home together with her young son, Phil is positively furious. He thinks that the widow is only out for their money, and he thinks that the son is a pansy, a weakling. He starts bullying them both relentlessly, which only increases the tension in the house. So as I said at the beginning, even though the film is dressed in period clothes, it really is an exploration of a character, specifically the character of Phil. I have to say, this may very well be Cumberbatch's best performance yet. I think it's something very different from what he's done so far. He usually plays tortured geniuses or asshole geniuses. This time around, he is this complicated person who initially seems just like a massive bully through and through. But then later on, we begin to see that this is very much a facade that he's carefully built in order to deal with his internal turmoil. His loneliness, his being different from others, feeling that he doesn't quite fit, which leads to creating this outside face of an angry, tough man. And that is not to say that his reasons justify his behavior, but considering the times, the societal norms at the time, probably his upbringing as well, it makes him understandable at least. It makes him a tragic product of his environment, someone who was not able to sort of be himself and had to revert to creating this hard shell around him. And this is all heartbreaking because on the one hand, he very much perpetuates the cycle. He is causing significant emotional pain to his brother's wife and her son. And on the other hand, because at some point he begins to warm up to the boy, he begins to see him in a different light, but then that turns out to be too little too late. The consequences of his actions come back to bite him from a source that may be somewhat unexpected. And the resolution of the story, of the story's conflict, is chilling because you get this feeling that the cycle of violence probably will continue, even if it has a completely different face now. I think that the film stands on the shoulders of Cumberbatch. He is the linchpin that ties the story together, and he does a terrific job in the role. He's completely believable through and through. He has all these tiny facial expressions which perfectly convey whatever he's feeling or thinking at the time. Be it malice, satisfaction, anger, annoyance, curiosity. He just sells all the emotions. Great stuff from him. I think that the supporting cast is great as well. The film looks fantastic. I have to say, especially considering it's a Netflix production, usually their movies look slightly too clean, too sanitized, which has to do with the weaker production design, more boring cinematography, poorer lighting, and so on. This film looks like a proper film, and some of its shots are very beautiful indeed. I'm not sure how much of the landscape of New Zealand, where the movie was actually shot, actually resembles Montana, where it's supposed to take place, but I bought it with my limited knowledge. My one criticism of the movie has to do with the shift that happens in Phil around the middle part. There is a pivot in his approach to the boy, and I felt that there was almost some scenes missing. It was too sudden and too quick in the other direction. Literally, one scene, they're essentially mortal enemies, you could say, and the next Phil begins to offer some kindness and kind of presents himself as a mentor to the young man. It comes so suddenly, I initially thought it must be a trap of some sorts, but apparently that, as the story goes on, it turns out that it was probably meant to be genuine after all. I just feel that there should have been a scene or two kind of in the middle, kind of explaining that a little bit more. For the most part though, it is still a solid interpersonal drama, looks great, is well written, and is worth checking out even just for Cumberbatch alone.